We're having some StreamYard difficulties today.
Yes, we are. Having trouble connecting. Please check your internet connection. Yeah. Getting the circle of death here.
Oh, no.
Okay. So let's try this again. Sometimes this happens. All right. Going live in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecini. We are presented by The Athletic. After one false start and a week off of the show because of my illnesses, we're back. And Andrew Schlecht is here. Andrew and I are going to dive into the 10 biggest remaining questions of the 2023 NBA offseason. We're going to talk a little bit about where the Damian Lillard talk seems to stand. We're going to talk a little bit about James Harden. We're going to talk about extensions that are potentially out on the table, stars, role players, rookie extensions. We're going to talk a little bit about some remaining free agents as well. There are a few names that still are out there that are intriguing to all of us. Andrew's here, and I'm excited to have him. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, just living the NBA offseason, man. It's July 24th. Not a whole lot's going on, and it's kind of awesome. So,
well, speaking of not a whole lot going on and living that off-season life, I mean, we have a very important question here from Matthew Palazzolo. I mean, is Andrew always that tan? Guys, like, this dude, when I saw him in Vegas, this looks like a downgrade in terms of the tan where you were.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to Sam. I blew Sam's mind that I was on a mower this morning, mowing my 2 acres this morning, and it about blew Sam's mind whenever we were talking about that. And I think we were at the arena when I was telling you that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where my tan comes from. I'm just sitting on a zero turn, just catching some rays,
Not beach life, not any sort of real thing. It's just he's got that dad life, that dad lawnmower life.
Right.
He's coming back. Andrew went to Oklahoma State. So the tweet I sent out yesterday about Matt Damon dad movies.
Yeah.
Andrew has definitely come home and watched Stillwater after a day of mowing the yard.
Better believe it. Better believe it.
Okay. Our goal today is I have 10 questions for Andrew.
Yep.
We're going to run through them. We're going to talk about them. And we're just going to kind of go from there, right? Some of these will take 3 minutes to answer. Some of these will take, potentially 10, 12 minutes to answer. There will be multiple players in some sections. There will be single players in some sections. So ultimately our goal here is to talk about what's left. Like, what is going to happen the rest of the way in the 2023 NBA offseason. And if we're going to start a 2023 NBA offseason discussion, I think that we have to begin with the thing that has taken over the NBA, Damian Lillard.
Mm-hmm.
Damian Lillard obviously is going to get traded at some point, it feels like. That just, they're going in a different direction now, Portland. They've drafted Scoot Henderson. They have a very young core that they're excited about. Damian Lillard should be and seemingly is on the trade market. The problem, it looks like, is that Miami does not have the right mix of assets in order to get a deal done with ease, let's say.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on, does Damian Lillard get to Miami? Let's start with that.
I think so. I think really the only other team that I think that could really be in the mix is the Nets. And I think that they could definitely overwhelm the Blazers with picks. And if I'm the Blazers, that's what I would want anyways. So I like that. I think it just comes down to is, can they find a home for Tyler Hero that involves picks that would go back to Portland? And so to me, that is like a reasonable holdup for this deal. Because if I'm Portland, like, I just don't want anything to do with Tyler Hero. Really good player, but he's going to help us be 28 wins when I want to be 21 wins, And so that to me would be the holdup. And I would just be trying to squeeze them for picks. They're going to have to make an amendment with Oklahoma City on one of their first round picks, which I think OKC would gladly do. But yeah, I think he'll probably end up in Miami. I still think it makes the most sense. And typically stars get to where they want to go, and unless somebody overwhelms them, like Brooklyn. But I'm trying to rack my brain as to who else would really need a point guard and who else is really going to pay up for it. And so I really think we're headed toward a Miami deal, but also if you're the Blazers, you kind of have to let this drag out, even just for the PR portion of it. Hey, we're dragging this out. We got the best deal we could for Miami. We pushed them. We squeezed them. This is the best we could get. Yeah, Dirty Dancer in the comments says it feels like Philly should get involved. I always thought that a deal that involved James Harden and Lillard in the same deal made some sense. And I'm sure, Philly would be ecstatic to be able to get in on that. It's just, and it makes some sense. You get to get the Clippers involved, and you send Harden there, and then you just send all the picks just go to the Blazers. And so that makes sense, and that would just tie a nice bow on the end of the offseason for everybody, is if you could get Harden to the Clippers, you get Dame to Philly, and then both teams just send picks to the Blazers. So
what I've struggled with that piece of it, in terms of the Harden thing, and we'll talk about Harden. Harden's the second question here, so maybe we'll wait on him.
Yeah.
But I'm still struggling to see what the Clippers do for the Sixers. That makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
Ultimately, I do kind of think that this ends with Lillard in Miami. It just is difficult to figure out how, I guess. I think it does make the most sense for Tyler Hero to go to a third team, for a team to give up an asset to get Tyler Hero. The Oklahoma City thing with the Heat, can you explain that to people?
Yeah, so they can't trade enough picks just because of the Stepien rule. And so they need to, because they have too many picks traded away, and so they need to end the protection, because the protection they have on their pick with the Thunder goes out a couple years. And so if they just make it unprotected, then they're able to unlock a couple picks from there.
Right. So they owe Oklahoma City their 2025 first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that the really interesting idea here to me, if I was Sam Presti and I was trying to figure all this out, is I wonder if you could trade that pick back and then send instead an unprotected 20, you can't do 2030 because it's 7 years out. 29. You could do 2029 or something like that. And then you could do, but no, you can still only send out 2 picks that way. So that doesn't totally work. But there might be a way where you could do something along those lines, I guess, where maybe it's a 2024 that maybe you send a unprotected 2024. No, but that wouldn't be valuable. It has to be a way out in the future, unprotected.
Portland if you're Portland, wouldn't you rather have the 29 pick?
Yeah, you could get you could rather have the 29 pick or the 30 pick for sure, which then allows Miami to trade 23, 24, 26 basically, because you can trade Hawk as the 23 already.
Yeah. 24, 26. Yeah.
And then you could do swaps as well every year, basically.
And then you get whatever the compensation is for Hero. Send that as well.
Right. So there's a way to do this where it's multiple picks, pretty easily.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone's trying to figure out who's the third team that's going to be involved. I think it's very obvious that Oklahoma City is a third team that gets involved with us.
To take Hero?
No, just to
involve
themselves to do this.
Just for the picks. They're going to have to be involved. Yeah.
Almost unequivocally.
Yeah.
Gabriel Barber brings up Orlando is a landing spot for Hero. And I feel like that is a team that has not been brought up a lot with Hero. And I do think it makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, I do kind of like that.
I kind of like that too. I would think Orlando would be willing to give up like some sort of pick value. The problem with this is like, while Tyler Hero makes a lot of sense for Orlando, in my opinion, he doesn't really fit their typical player type.
Yeah.
Like they like long athletic guys that can do a lot of different things on the court, defend and really pass at a high level. Just look at their draft history, right? You know, super positional size, Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, Anthony Black, even like Jet Howard is big for what they think is a 2-guard, right?
Yeah.
So like Hero doesn't really fit their archetype, even though Hero makes an immense amount of sense for them if they want to get better next season, which I think they do want to get better. The other thing is they have a ton of picks coming.
Yeah.
Like they have 2 extra first round picks. They have all of their picks kind of still in regard to, you know, they haven't traded any out. So they could do this, I think, like relatively easily. It's just whether or not this front office in Orlando would value Tyler Hero. I probably would if I was them, frankly. And I want to, if my goal was to get better next season, Tyler Hero makes a lot of sense for them, I think. But I'm not convinced their front office will want that. Is there another team that could unlock this? Like, does I don't know, like, you know, Utah feels like a team that has been brought up. Utah kept Jordan Clarkson. They still have Taylor Horton Tucker. I mean, you know, Tyler Hero, I guess more backcourt depth for a team that doesn't have a ton of answers there, but they also have Keontae George now, who looks like a real dude.
Yeah.
So
I just wouldn't just for the development of their young guys. And I just don't know that they want to be that good this year either. Because if they're decent, their first round pick goes to OKC.
Right.
So I mean, want that.
That's also like a real factor here. How many teams will want their first round picks to transfer this year? Because this upcoming draft is not very good.
Yeah.
I talked to a couple that like are trying to get to where they can get these picks that they owe to transfer this year in order to no longer have like a future extending out thing. I was trying to also figure out, like, is there a world where Milwaukee could get involved where like, could you do something weird like Bobby Portis, you know, Pat Connaughton and Marjon Beauchamp, and then like Grayson Allen or something? Because you can get the money pretty close.
Yeah. What is there?
I mean, that's a lot of depth to give up, though.
Yeah.
And I don't know that necessarily makes. I don't know that giving up that much depth for Tyler Hero makes them better, but Tyler Hero is a great fit there.
Yeah.
In a way that like actually makes a lot of sense to me. There are a number of spots where you could make this work. Ultimately, I think the move is you just do a deal with Oklahoma City to remove those protections. You trade Tyler Hero for a first round pick to somebody. I think somebody will give up a first round pick for Tyler Hero at the end of the day. Whether or not I would is inconsequential. I just think somebody would, even on that contract. So you're ending up in a circumstance where if you do that deal with Oklahoma City, you do a Tyler Hero deal, you're able to send out 3 first round picks plus Jaime Jaquez plus pick swaps. Maybe you can get Caleb Martin there. I don't know. I think that it's interesting. Gabriel Barber brings up that you could then, if you did the Oklahoma City thing, you could do 24, 28, and 30. You kind of can't, I don't think, because if you're removing the protections on 25, you then can't move 24. Right. You know, it becomes then that you can move 27 and 29 or 28 and 30. You would then be removing 2 straight years if you just remove the protections on Oklahoma City. So it's a little bit more complicated than that in terms of trying to manage all of this. But I think that there are a number of different avenues where Portland gets 3 first round picks, Jaime Jaquez. If they want Nikola Jovic, by all means, go for it. Yeah. By the way, like it wouldn't surprise me if they do want Jaquez. I don't know that for sure, but like I did hear his name a little bit with Portland pre-draft. So that like, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if they value Hawkes in the same way that they ended up valuing Chris Murray pre-draft, right? As like an older player that could bring them some stability.
Well, if you're just, if you're trading Dame, you're just like, hey, I need all the valuable things that you have, you know, and just
and you get 3 firsts, you get multiple swaps, you get Jaime Hawkes, you get Jovic. Like that's actually like I don't know if it's a good deal for Portland, but we're getting to the point where it's relatively fair, I think.
Yeah. I think with age and the amount of costs on the back end of that deal too, they just waited a year too long to do it.
Yes.
This is what it comes down to. And this is what's going to happen. And also the teams that just gave up so much are being so shamed right now for these big deals that they did for Gobert and Mitchell of last year, that I think teams are probably gun shy. Like, I don't know.
That's right.
I don't know that we can give up everything. I mean, if you look back at the hauls that Utah got for both guys, it's like, whoa. I mean, it's astounding. You look back at the Mitchell deal, it is pretty crazy what they were able to get for Donovan Mitchell. And then I think when you compare it to what they are eventually going to get for Dame, it's going to seem like pennies. I think just making that direct comp could make some Portland fans pretty frustrated.
But you know what though? Like, yeah, I mean, Dame is better than Donovan Mitchell by a good portion. So like, yeah. I mean, he should go for what Donovan Mitchell went for, and he's going to go for a little bit less than that, I think. At the end of the day.
Yeah, probably quite a bit. I mean, it's Markanen, Avdija, Colin Sexton, 3 unprotected first-round picks, 25, 27, 29, and 2 swaps in 26 and 28. So, like, substantial players.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what Markanen was at the time. We just knew he was a good player.
Right.
And he blew up, and that ended up just, like, working in Utah's favor. But still, like, getting Avdija would be similar to getting, like, Hawkes from this last draft. And then, like, 3 unprotecteds and 2 swaps. Like, that's a lot. And Colin Sexton, too, who was like a recent lottery pick, he's kind of whatever to me, but still, like, he kind of like has this like almost like placeholder value just because he was a lottery pick not that long ago.
Okay. Question number 2. James Harden apparently wants out of Philadelphia.
Yup.
The team most associated with James Harden has been the Los Angeles Clippers. Can the Clippers make a move for James Harden? And does James Harden start the year in a Philadelphia jersey?
I think he does. I just think he does. I think that they're at this kind of weird junction where it's the Clippers know that if they give up Terrence Mann, that's a pretty big loss for them because they are already old and slow. And what James Harden does for them is just makes them a lot older and a lot slower. And you take Terrence Mann out of that equation, it doesn't give them a lot of wiggle room with style of play. And it's not like Terrence Mann is like going to like flip a series or something like, but he's a good player. And if you're the Clippers, you know, like, hey, Philly, you have put yourself in a rough spot.
Yes.
And so there's not a lot of teams, one that could or would want to trade for James Harden on an expiring deal. And the Clippers happen to be the team that probably makes the most sense just on the court, makes some sense. And so they're saying like, hey, Philly's like, hey, we want this. Sorry, no, we'll give you some expirings. We'll give you a pick or a swap or something. And that's what we're willing to give. And I don't blame them because if you're the Clippers, you don't have to do this deal. Like you don't have to get this deal done. So I think he stays in Philly.
On the other side of that, trading James Harden really disadvantages Philadelphia, like in a significant way. Like I love Terrence Mann. I was probably higher on Terrence Mann pre-draft than anybody. I had like a top 50 grade on him. I thought he was a stud. Like I am an enormous fan of him. I continue to be an enormous fan of him.
Yeah.
If you're getting Terrence Mann, Marcus Morris,
Oh,
Nicola Batum, I guess. No, it'd have to be Norman Powell,
I
Marcus
was gonna say
Morris.
it would have to be Norm Powell. Would have to be like the offensive weapon going back to
Yeah, or
Philly.
Norman Powell, Nicola Batum, Terrence Mann. That gets you pretty close in terms of the numbers.
Yeah,
And then if you had to like finagle it financially in one way or another, Philly could send back a minimum. That gets you close money wise.
yeah,
I like Norman Powell. I like Terrence Mann. I don't think there's any way that team is a contender anymore.
yeah.
You're talking about Tyrese Maxey, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid at that point. I mean, like, I don't know if PJ Tucker would go or not, but then you have D'Anthony Melton, you have Paul Reed. Like, that's just not a contender at that point. So if you're Philadelphia, you can't do that deal because if you're not a contender, you run the risk of Joel Embiid saying, I don't want to be here anymore. And Joel is getting to the point where that's a real problem for you if he does that. I know he has 4 years or 3 years left on his deal, but you don't want to manage that issue. That's your biggest fear as an organization moving forward. So to me, I actually don't know that there's fungibility to this in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, can we name another team that makes sense for James Harden?
No.
I mean, I was kind of racking my brain earlier thinking that the Knicks have suddenly gotten smart. If this were like 7 years ago, I'd be like, oh yeah, he's going to be a Knick.
The issue is a team giving up real value for James Harden.
Yeah.
With like real, what I was trying to figure out, is there a player that is signed to a long-term deal that the team does not like, that thinks is like a bad contract now, that maybe they could look to offload some upside or offload some risk, right?
Probably
like
not at the guard position. Probably not at like the playmaking position.
Well, like 24 seconds brings up Zach LaVine. Honestly, the LaVine deal is, look, it's probably not awesome. Zach has, I think, like probably 175 or so over the next 4 years owed to him. But that's an okay deal. Like, that's not going to kill you or anything. It's not going to kill the Bulls at all. I don't think they would want to offload that risk. The only way that you can make that case to me is if they just want to completely start fresh this year.
Yeah.
But again, like if you're in that circumstance.
But I mean, they just gave Vooch a new deal.
Yeah, and I don't think this is what they want to do. I don't think it's the direction they want to go. The only way you could make a case for me on that is if they want to sign Anthony Davis in the offseason next year, which we'll talk about Anthony Davis momentarily here. But Chicago kid, et cetera, they think LeBron is leaving, whatever intel you have there. But if you're Chicago, you already have a big expiring contract in DeMar DeRozan. You can get to the cap number you need for Anthony Davis anyway. So you probably want to pair him with LaVine.
Yeah.
So I don't think LaVine makes sense for any of this. I mean, Karl Towns with Joel Embiid, that doesn't make sense. I saw that in the comments somewhere.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that you need a creator. If you're going to deal James Harden away, like what Philly had needed for years was just like somebody to create a shot for themselves and a shot for others. And you can't just you can't replace them with just a few wings. Because I just don't know. I mean, that's just so much pressure on Tyrese Maxey, who is he's been put in a great position.
Yeah.
And so
that's right.
I just don't know. That's why like the 3-team deal that gets Harden to the Clippers and then Dame to Philly and then just all the picks to the Blazers is like the only one that I'm like, okay, maybe that could satisfy all parties.
But still, what is going back to Philly in that circumstance? Because that's ultimately my big thing is like, I don't know what goes back to Philly that makes sense for Philly more than James Harden when you have Tobias Harris. Maybe. Yeah. That's great. I think that's a really good idea. It's just I don't know if they'll
Yeah.
do that.
You don't know that Philly would do it?
Well, I don't know that I don't know that Portland would do that. Like, what
Yeah.
is the deal? Because like, it's not like Philly has an immense number of picks just like kind of sitting
Yeah.
around at this point. Like they owe their 20. Hilariously, another team that owes its 2025 first rounder to Oklahoma City, by the way, that's
Yeah.
protected. But moreover, they owe a 2027 to Brooklyn as
Yeah.
well.
That is the biggest problem and it would be a combination of both the Clippers and Philly sending first round to the Blazers to satisfy everybody.
Yeah, and maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, Philly, I think, could move one pick and then pick swaps. The
Mhm.
Clippers, I think, similarly, like, can move one maybe because they owe 2024. Another team, by the way, that owes all of their picks to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
The level to which Oklahoma City might get paid off here to help facilitate a Damian Lillard or James Harden trade is
Oh yeah.
hilarious to me.
They're just sitting back waiting for the phone call. They know that they kind of hold some cards here with these teams that they need to get better.
Yeah. The Clippers owe 2024 to Oklahoma City. They owe 2026 to Oklahoma City. They have everything after that.
Mhm.
It's just, can you facilitate? Honestly, like Miami, maybe Oklahoma City can facilitate this a little bit in the same way they can for Miami. Maybe that is a thing that makes sense. Maybe you could sell me on this, that like you could combine the picks from the two teams and get it to Portland.
I mean,
Maybe.
if I'm Portland, all I want is picks, honestly.
Yeah, I want Hawkeye. Honestly, though, like I want Hawkeyes too.
Okay.
I do. Like I value him.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think, like, is there anybody there's not really any young guy on the Clippers that I love. I like Kobe Brown. I don't know that Kobe Brown's like a necessity in the same way that Hawkes is for me.
No, I don't think so.
Like I like, I guess like I don't know. There's another name out there that's like a necessity, but
there's not for Philly either. Like Philly doesn't really have, I mean, their young guy was Tyrese Maxey, but they're not trading him anyways. But also he's going to get paid, and if you're and you don't really want that either.
And does that for Philly, is that their trump card? We can put Maxey on the table.
Could be. I mean, if you're getting Dame, you might want to do that, but then you're still just in this position where you need to win with Joel, and you have just taken this like heap of assets, and you have just whittled it down again and again and again and again.
Shout out Brian Colangelo, Elton Brand, everybody there that was there before Morey. So, my goodness. Look, I think that the Miami thing still just makes more sense for Damian Lillard at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if there's a team that accomplishes Philadelphia's goals, I guess.
That's why I just think he's in Philly. That's why I just think that they figure out a way to play nice this season, and then maybe something comes along mid-season, but I just don't see an immediate fix for Harden out there.
Okay, let's go to the next question here. Involves another star that could potentially be on the trade market, Pascal Siakam. Thomas Lancaster asks, what would you do if you were GM of the Raptors? They're clearly at a fork in the road. That's where we're going next, Thomas. Pascal Siakam has 1 year left on his contract. It seems like he kind of wants to re-sign in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I think that's true.
Like, it feels like he would love to get an extension there, which is intriguing to me. I think that Siakam is a player that, probably should feel like he is worthy of an extension on some level. Yeah. But if you're Toronto, you have this weird roster where you've just re-signed Jakob Poeltl for 4 years. You have OG Anunoby still. And then you have Scotty Barnes, who is seemingly your marquee player. that you're building around moving forward. Is this the time to cash in on Pascal Siakam, given that it seems like they've said OG Anunoby is off the table in some respect?
Yeah. You got to make a decision either way. you can't drag this one out again. And
this is the problem with Toronto.
You can't Fred VanVleet this one too, because that's the problem. Is they need to decide what they want, and they send mixed messages like, "Hey, we want Scotty Barnes as our future. Hey, we're signing Dennis Schroeder, which might be like the point guard that makes the least amount of sense to pair with Scotty Barnes. You sign Jakob Poeltl, who doesn't shoot, who also doesn't make a ton of sense with Scotty Barnes if you want Scotty to handle. They're just a little bit all over the place. They're not making a decision on Pascal, at least as of now. And they're putting themselves in a weird place. I mean, in all honesty, like it was a nice chance to kind of reset when Fred left, to not do the Poeltl deal. Yeah, you gave up a pick for him. You just got to cut your losses there. Find a landing spot for Gary Trent. Find a landing spot for Siakam. Find a landing spot for OG if you want, or you can keep him. He's young enough to where you can feel like you can keep him around. That to me was like the right direction to go. And yet they signed Poeltl to like a pretty decent sized deal. It'll look fine in a couple of years. And then they brought in Schroeder as like a direct reaction to losing Fred. And it just leaves me perplexed as to exactly what they want to do and where they want to go. And, I think Siakam just being in purgatory right now is like a direct reflection of where the Raptors are as a franchise.
Here's my question. Would you rather pay Pascal Siakam near max money?
Yeah.
Or OG Anunoby near max money? Because I think that's where this is headed. You're going to have to make a decision on one of the two. If you pay both of them max money, you're resigning yourself to being, if you have a great year, you probably are the 4 seed, right?
Yeah. Can I say neither?
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable take. I would
rather pay Siakam. I just think he's a better player.
I think I would too. Like OG is 3 years younger.
Yeah.
And I think that you could say that maybe OG's deal would be a little bit less than the max. Like I think that they'd probably come to some sort of consideration where maybe it's 4 years, $127 million or something like that. Whereas Pascal would be at like 4 years, 165, 175, whatever you want to say. Right. So I do think there'd be a difference in the contracts, but Pascal is better. OG is probably a better fit with Scotty Barnes.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it ultimately comes down to what is your read on Scotty Barnes? Do you think Scotty is the guy that you build around or not? And I think the jury's out on that. I think it's possible that he is.
I do too. I think their indecisiveness probably shows that they are not quite sure yet either.
Yes.
Because I think if he was the guy to build around, I think it's reasonable to just keep OG. Like you said, he does fit. And I think you would have traded Siakam because he doesn't exactly fit. If Scotty is that guy, Siakam is probably not the best running mate just because of the lack of shooting. And so you deal him to Indy or to Atlanta and you get the best return you can and you move forward and try to, form a team that makes a little bit more sense around Scotty. And you just need shooting, which is also why the Poeltl thing is just perplexing to me. Like if Scotty's supposed to be your on-ball creator, I just don't know that Poeltl is the best pairing with him. But I also just am not completely sure that he is the primary on-ball creator for them.
Yeah, and I'm not sure either. It ultimately comes down to how much you believe in Scotty Barnes becoming a great shooter, because that's what you need to be in order to be a high level creator in the NBA at this point. You have to be able to shoot it at a reasonable level. The Anunoby thing is interesting. Like Anunoby can sign something like a 4-year, think it's like 117, $118 million extension, like somewhere in that ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
That's like not far off his value.
Yeah.
And for a player that has dealt with injuries throughout the course of his career,
yeah,
it is a little bit interesting to me that this seems to like not be a consideration. Maybe I'm like misreading that on some level, but like I haven't really heard a lot about Anunoby signing an extension, right?
Yeah.
When in reality, like I think that should be on the table. Like OG Anunoby came into the league with injury questions. You know, in 2021, he played 43 games. In 2022, he played 48 games. Last year, he played 67 games, right? Like he's never played 70 games over the last 5 years of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you're telling me, you know, the difference for OG Anunoby is I can lock in right now at 4 years, 116, or I have to wait and take a risk this year and get to free agency and make 135 or something. Look, 20 million is a lot of money. Like I'm not sitting here and saying otherwise, but for somebody that has already made, you know, he has had like a 4-year, $68 million extension. I don't know that 20 million like changes your quality of life a ton necessarily, or like your generational wealth, like in a substantial way.
Yeah.
Right. So locking into that money seems reasonable to me. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, are the Raptors willing to do extensions with their players that are real? Because they acted like they wanted to extend VanVleet and Siakam, like, but it seemed like they gave them to him at like the last minute, and then they were just like, no, we'll just push. And it just seems like they're just in a weird spot. I just don't know if I'm them. I just want to rebuild anyways, and just try to get somebody in the next 2 drafts, and then try to move forward with them.
Well, and if Scotty is your guy, you have to build very specifically around Scotty.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Like you have to create a very real like environment that works around him, involving a ton of shooting, involving a real amount of floor spacing. Jakob Poeltl does not make sense in this regard.
Yeah.
I love Jakob Poeltl as a player.
Yeah.
Does not make a ton of sense for them. If you're building around Scotty Barnes. I just don't know. Like, I'm just like very unclear. I think that I would try and extend OG Anunoby, and if he didn't want to take 117, I'd probably move him.
Yeah,
and I would try. I don't know what I would do with Siakam. I'd probably move him. I think I probably would try and move him depending on what the offers are. If the offers are real, and Atlanta, it seems like, is somewhat motivated to try and make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you do something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I do too.
Yeah. They need to pick a direction. I think they're trying to play too far in between the 2 timelines. And that doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work in today's NBA. I don't.
Oh, you can't do it. And the reason I would rebuild too is I just don't see a true path to contention for this squad.
Yeah.
Like, what are you really going to do that's going to make the Raptors as good as the Celtics or the Bucks or any teams like that? Like, I don't think there's an answer for that. That's why I just flat out just don't understand the things that they've done. Because what they're going to do is they're going to put themselves in NBA purgatory. The worst spot ever is in the middle.
Yeah.
Where like maybe this team can make the play in. Like, yeah, this team can make the play in. But
and where they screwed up is not moving Fred at the deadline. I talked about that last year. I would have moved him.
Yeah.
And then not moving Gary Trent, frankly. Like they got lucky and Trent opted in. Maybe the funny thing would be if they extend Gary Trent, right? Like gosh. If you're Gary Trent, you probably I assumed at the time when he opted in with like something of a tacit understanding that there would be an extension, but maybe there's not. Like maybe he's just opting in at 18 because that's more on a yearly basis than what he will make. And he didn't want to lock in on the money. He wanted to play the upside game next offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. It's interesting. A couple of quick questions before we move on. Would you trade Scotty for Dame? The Ringer floated that idea out. Absolutely not if I was Toronto.
No. No.
There's just
Again,
no...
that doesn't. What does it really do for you if you're Toronto?
Yeah, it just like that doesn't make you a contender, I don't think. Like, I
No,
don't think that Lillard, Siakam, OG, Pirtle is a contender.
no, that's a good team, but a good 5 or 6 seed.
I think they're even better than that. I think they're probably like a 3 seed, but I don't think they're... Yeah, like I don't know if that gets you to where you need to be, given how much you'd be going all in on that core,
Yeah.
especially given that, you know, maybe you extend Siakam at that point, right? But you don't know if Dame wants to come to Toronto. I would not do that.
Yeah.
I keep thinking Immanuel Quickley for OG and Anunoby makes sense. If I knew what Immanuel Quickley was going to make, and we're going to talk about him momentarily too, it's interesting.
I mean, if you're the Knicks, like, yes.
And if you think that Quickley can be a point guard long term,
Yeah,
he's actually a really good fit with Scotty. Is like the Scotty point guard. If you think Scotty is going to play, you know, on the ball a lot more often,
Quickley's
right?
good. Quickley's good. He had a weird end of the season and a weird playoffs. And I know he got hurt, but he just wasn't good at all in the playoffs. But I like that idea. I mean, if you're the Knicks, would have to be sending something else back to Toronto, in my opinion, to make that work. But like, I think there's some potential there. I think getting some kind of guard back will be essential in either a Siakam or an OG deal. Like they need some kind of guard that you can pair with OG that shoots it.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, RK says it was reported Gary Trent is signing an extension. That's true, like, but we haven't heard anything about that in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I don't know what is going to happen there. I think is where we're going to go with it. Okay. Question number 4. These ones will get a little bit shorter as we go. Does Jaylen Brown sign his extension with the Boston Celtics? Jaylen Brown is now Supermax eligible. The extension number is something in the ballpark of like 300 million, let's say. It's 295, 305, you know, whatever the number is. It's like 5 years, $300 million.
Yeah.
Does he sign this extension with the Boston Celtics, Andrew?
He better. Extension. What are you waiting for? I don't know exactly what the holdup is on this, but yes, he should sign the extension. People are still going to make fun of his left hand, and then he can just show everybody the dollar amount that he's getting. So yeah, he should sign it. He's a really good player, still a young player. I think he's only 26. So yeah, sign it. I think Jaylen Brown will continue to get better. I think the Boston Celtics will continue to be a contender, and you just don't worry about it.
Look, I also think Jaylen Brown is going to sign this extension. It's weird to me that he hasn't yet, frankly. And I think that's why this is still a remaining question. Like there were a couple people I talked to at Summer League that were like that work with teams that are like, wait, why isn't this happening yet? And I just think that, you know, these negotiations sometimes can take a minute when you're committing $300 million to a single player, right? Mm-hmm. No, I think it's going to happen. I see no reason otherwise. Like I think Boston will offer it because they have to offer it. Yep. That's just the way they've built their team, right? And the thing about the $300 million extension for Boston is it doesn't become a problem for them until Jason also signs his, right? From a team building perspective, is none issue for Boston that Jaylen Brown is on this enormous number until about 2025, 26. So I think you lock him in to this and you're happy with it. If you're Boston, and I think you're Jaylen, you take it because this is the most money you're going to make in your life. Right.
Yeah. Well, and Tatum's new deal wouldn't start until 26, 27 anyways.
Yeah.
Like you've got plenty of time. You are a contender. You just have to, like both sides just have to do it. It's a no-brainer for both sides.
Yeah. And it's one of those deals where when you build a contender, you deal with the future problems when the future problems come.
Yeah.
Right.
Still have a lot.
There will be real flexibility issues that come down the pike, but you just have to do it. And you bite the bullet and you say, Jaylen Brown, you know, the reason that I think this is okay for Boston to offer this is because they already have the guy. If they didn't like if I was Memphis, for instance, and I'm like not 100% sure that Ja Morant can be the number one option on a title team, I would be more worried about offering a deal to Jaylen Brown that would limit my flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
In Boston's case, I feel way more certainty that I think Jason Tatum can be the number one option on a title team, given the fact that he's already led me to the NBA Finals, right? So I feel good about being able to overpay my number two option because I already have the number one option in place.
Yeah.
It's what Milwaukee has done with Chris Middleton, right? Like it's what, a number of teams have done, because when you have the top guy, you pay for the rest and just make it work.
Yeah. And Jaylen Brown is really good.
And Jaylen Brown's great. Jaylen Brown, like I wouldn't have voted him all NBA, but I think it's reasonable that he made all NBA this year.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he did, because now it sets him up for an enormous payday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's 20 players in the league. And if you have one of those guys, you just pay them.
Especially when they're 26. You got to pay them.
26. Yes.
Okay. Question number 5. Other potential star extensions that we haven't yet discussed. Anthony Davis is extension eligible.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis has 1 year left on his contract. I feel like that is the thing that has gone the most under the radar in the NBA right now. Like, it's not like Anthony Davis is on an expiring contract right now. And a big piece of that is obviously the Lakers are in this situation with LeBron James where will he be there next year? Will he not be there next year? Not in 2023-24, but rather 2024-25. Will LeBron James be there?
Right.
Made the quick little comments about retiring, everything like that. Well, Anthony Davis's early termination option in the summer of 2024, his option year there in 2024-25 is for $43 million. He will get more than that.
I was going to say
on the market.
Go ahead and book that he's opting out of that.
I think that's right. I think he will exercise the early termination option.
Yeah.
But if you're the Lakers, I think you probably want him to sign an extension. I know that there are inherent flaws in potentially, like, if LeBron retires and then you have this big Anthony Davis deal on your books. Anthony Davis is still great. And I think you just kind of have to roll with that, right?
It's a tough spot for the Lakers, I think.
It is.
Because he's going to be 30. He hasn't played. I mean, he played 56 games last year, 40 games the year prior, 36, but that was in the weird bubble year. But he just hadn't played a lot of games.
Yeah.
And so locking him into, I mean, you're locking your team up if you do this. I don't envy their position, because I do think that you can't replace Anthony Davis. But also, if you're only getting Anthony Davis for half the season and you don't know which half that's going to be, that makes it really tough. Now, if you can
that goes the other way if you're a team acquiring Anthony Davis in free agency next year as well.
No question. I mean, honestly, Anthony Davis, locking him up through age 33, that kind of scares me a little bit, to be honest, because he's gonna demand a lot of money. He's still a great player, but it just comes down to when healthy. And it's just a tough bet to make. Now, if you've got LeBron and you have him on board, like, you just have to do whatever you can to continue to push for a title. You've won one with that duo, and you want to push to do it again. If you're the Lakers without LeBron, do you really want to have Anthony Davis on that contract? I don't know. Because if I'm the Lakers, I would rather have cap flexibility.
Do you think Anthony Davis is an asset after this season if he is signed to a 4-year, $200 million contract?
Oh, man. I think he could. If he plays 60 games plus, yes. If he doesn't, then maybe not. But I think at this point, teams would take a bite at just trying to get him on their team. Like Chicago, I think would love to have him on their team, and you could get some real stuff.
All of Chicago's maneuvering over the last couple of months here, like basically since the deadline, I feel like it all makes a lot more sense if you look at it through the prism of them trying to lure Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Because Nikola Vucevic at 33 on like a $20 million a year deal for 3 years doesn't make a lot of sense on its face when you're basically running back like a 38 win team, right?
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense if your goal is like, hey, we're going to build a core of Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, Kobe White, Alex Caruso, Ayo Dosunmu, Javon Carter, Anthony Davis.
Oh,
right.
I mean, kind of. That just makes me feel a little sad for Chicago fans, just because I don't know. I would. That's not what I'd want to chase if I was a Chicago.
I agree, because you're setting yourself up for potential disaster if LeBron decides to stay in LA for another year, right?
Yeah.
But
I don't
know. I feel like
the Lakers,
if you look at it through that prism, of trying to lure Anthony Davis, Chicago's moves, which have been dumbfounding to me across the board in a number of ways, I think they make a lot more sense in theory.
Yeah. I just think Chicago's kind of a mess. And I just don't know that adding a 30-plus-year-old Anthony Davis is the real answer to your problems.
Yeah. So you think no on an extension for Anthony Davis right now?
I would wait. I would not do it right now. I would understand the apprehension that Lakers front office members are feeling about it, just because there's a lot of uncertainty that will get more clear, in the next like 8 months or so. I think things will look more clear than they do today.
Yeah. If I was the Lakers, I would sign him to an extension for what it's worth.
Okay.
And for what it's worth, like Dave McMenamin, kind of seemed to think that this is going to happen.
Okay.
With AD, that he will sign an extension with the Lakers. I do think if you could tell me it was only you're adding 3 years to an AD deal, I think that's definitely an asset.
Yes.
But if I'm Rich Paul, there's no way I'm doing anything less than the full boat.
Oh, yeah.
So I think if you're the Lakers, you kind of just got to bite the bullet and do it, because your worst case scenario is that you have Anthony Davis. Your best case scenario is that you can, if LeBron leaves, your best case scenario is that you can move him for assets as you rebuild, and he's an asset.
True.
Right.
True.
So I think that you just do this at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And get it done.
I could see that. I also like having flexibility, just because you are the Lakers and you can make things happen when you're flexible. But if he's an asset, yes. If he's not an asset, you're still the Lakers and you can still figure something out.
I would just do this. I truly would. DeMar DeRozan, do you think he signs an extension?
Oh boy. I would.
Again, the Bulls, we don't know what they're doing, so I don't know.
It just feels gross to me. DeMar has been amazing as a Bull. I mean, when they made the initial deal, I think a lot of people were like, what are you doing to DeMar DeRozan?
Yeah.
He's 33. He'll be 34 in just a matter of weeks. It's gonna be a lot for somebody that's 34. I mean, if I'm Chicago, I do not extend, which probably means Chicago is definitely going to extend.
I don't think Chicago should extend. And if I'm DeMar, I don't think I would want to do an extension there, frankly.
Yeah.
But
I would not either, for what it's worth. If I were him, just looking for like the best basketball situation, like a winning situation, I just think that they're stuck at this point, and they don't really have like a true ability to get better, and they just kind of are and DeRozan's a part of that.
People know where I stand on DeMar DeRozan as a Hall of Famer. I think he's like unequivocally going to be a Hall of Famer no matter what happens. But there are questions about that for some people. And I get that.
Yeah.
If I was him, I'd be trying to put those questions to bed, frankly, given that I've already made like an immense amount of money in my career.
Yeah.
And I would want to try and like the last box for him to tick is winning situation.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
So
that's 6-time All-Star. I tend to agree. Like the amount of points that
he's going to finish as like, a top 20 scorer of all time, probably top 25 scorer of all time.
Yeah.
Where he's at already, I believe. I've done the math on this. Scorer. The level to which DeMar will finish as a scorer is so high that he's going to be a Hall of Famer. If you're the Clippers and if you are Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, do you sign extensions?
Oh, if I'm the Clippers, I probably would try to get them on fewer years and do it. If I could do 3 years, I would probably do it. If I'm Paul and Kawhi, I would probably do it too. I think it's a good situation for them, honestly. So I think yes on both of them. And just because if you're the Clippers, what are you doing if you don't have those guys?
Do you think that you buy yourself as a free agency market is ultimately what it comes down to? Because
no,
they get extremely flexible very quickly in terms of this. Like next season, if they were to get off of the Terrence Mann money, get off of the Ivica Zubac's money, which would be super easy.
Yeah,
like both those guys are assets at $11 million.
Yeah, Zubac is really good.
Yeah. All you would have left on your books is $19 million for Norman Powell, $4 million for Bones Highland, and like a player option for Russell Westbrook that I would venture he probably declines if Paul George and Kawhi aren't there.
Yeah, probably so.
So you are completely open to potentially like getting in the race for star players at that point. If you think Kawhi and Paul George aren't your guys in their 30s.
Yeah.
Right?
Free agency is just becoming less and less of the way that you get better.
Yeah.
Like significantly better. And also you're still the Clippers at the end of the day. And so I just don't know. I mean, who in the next couple years is going to be like a free agent that you would really want? Like Jamal Murray's going to be a free agent. Like I think he's probably going to stay in Denver. Brandon Ingram is that moving the needle for you that much? Like he's really good. I mean, if you could get Brandon Ingram, I just don't know that really is taking the Clippers anywhere.
Yeah. If I was the Clippers, if I could sign Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to 1-year extensions, I would do that.
100%. Yes.
Like unequivocally, because the 2025 summer is the summer where you can like really think that you can make some hay on this.
Yeah.
Right. With Brandon Ingram, potentially making a semblance of sense. Right.
Yeah. 26 will be probably a more interesting one where you have Fox and Tatum and Mitchell and Adebayo and Giannis could be a free agent. Like there's a lot of guys in that class. The 25 class is okay. The 26 class, which probably won't look as good because some of these extensions will get done. But that one is the one. Like Donovan Mitchell may want to explore free agency by then.
Yeah. That's the one where I think it lines up is 2 years down the road, not next summer.
Yeah.
The thing is that you have two guys that are from LA that want to be in LA and you're the Clippers. If I could do 2-year extensions on both these guys, I think I would do it.
I would do that.
If I was LA.
I would do that as well. It's been a rough go for them as a duo, but I just don't know what else you're supposed to really do. I mean, if I'm them, I run it back, hope that you have better luck, because I do think that there's opportunities in the West in the top like 3 or 4 teams. Maybe you don't beat Denver, but maybe get to the conference finals. That's a good run. So I would probably try to lock them in just because I don't think the alternatives are very good for them.
Couple other notes here. Brandon Ingram, I think, is just like not a guy that will sign an extension because he'd be giving up his chance at Supermax eligibility.
Definitely not.
If he makes All NBA this year, he's Supermax eligible, and
Yeah.
it's like not impossible he makes All NBA. Lauri Markanen is a no because his max extension is 3 years, 81 million, and that's just not enough for Lauri at this point. He is not Supermax eligible because he has been traded after his rookie scale deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that is not something that works for him. Yeah, I mean, we're at that point where I think that the star extensions, the name I'm looking at is Anthony Davis. Like, I want to see if that gets done.
Yeah.
Non-star extensions are question number 6 here. Josh Hart, I think probably gets an extension done.
That feels like it's going to get done.
With the Knicks?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that feels like it's going to get done.
Yeah. Extend off of this mutual option year and you can get 70 million plus, right?
Yeah.
Simple. Alex Caruso is a name that I think makes a lot of sense for an extension, given that Chicago seems like they want to continue to do weird things.
Yeah, that's fine. And he could also be an asset too, because his deal isn't going to be outrageous. And I think
he'd get to like 18 or so.
Yeah, and players like that are on those kind of contracts, like Lou Dort or somebody like those guys can be traded. Like those guys are needed on contenders, like point of attack defenders that can really help change the way you play are valuable.
Caruso on an extension, even at $18 million a year, is an asset, in my opinion. I think he is a stud.
It should get
the interesting one that I'm watching is Markelle Fultz.
Yeah.
Markelle is making 17 million next year before he's an unrestricted free agent. I think people have like way missed the boat on him. He's actually like a really good basketball player now.
Yes.
Insofar as like he is a starting quality point guard, maybe like 20th best point guard in the league, something like that. And is still quite young. Like Markelle is still only 25 years old, has gotten back all of the creativity and change of pace mixed with change of direction stuff off the bounce that he was missing when he didn't have like the confidence from the shot. I am fascinated to see what Orlando does because frankly, they just drafted his replacement in Anthony Black.
I know.
And you can't really play both Markelle Fultz and Anthony Black with Paulo and Franz.
Yeah.
If your goal is to put the ball in Paulo and Franz's hands more from a spacing perspective.
Yeah.
So
I'm a huge Anthony Black fan. I question the entire fit there overall, just because you'd think you'd want more shooting around those other guys. I would extend Markelle just similar to what the deal with Caruso. Like one, how much is an extension for Markelle Fultz really going to be?
It can start at 23.8 million. So it would get up to like 100 if you do 4. If you did 3, it'd be pretty close to the Lauri number. So it'd be like 81.
I would do the 3-year deal for Fultz. And I think he might sign it. And I think that he could be traded on that deal too. I think I agree. I think he's a helpful player. I think that he helps you win. I mean, at that number in 2 years, like that's easily traded. He's a guard off the bench for you. And I think he helps you win.
I don't disagree. If I'm him, I might not want to sign an extension there. You just drafted my replacement. And you drafted my replacement 2 years ago in Jalen Suggs. Right? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
I'm good enough to be a starting point guard, and you're investing all these assets in other things. Like, I don't know if I was him, if I want to sign an extension.
Yeah. You could sign the extension and then just ask to be traded.
Yeah.
This is what most people do these days.
D'Anthony Melton, it seems like Philly just needs to keep things like pretty open at this point.
Yeah. I mean, he's a really good player, but there's no need.
Yeah. Zach Collins is a name that I think is really interesting because Zach Collins was really good last year.
Okay.
Like, Zach Collins was sneaky, really good at the end of the year last year.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a better fit for Victor to start his career next to as a center than Zach Collins.
Next to a goon like Zach Collins?
That's why.
Yeah.
Like, I want Zach Collins every single time somebody tries to get in Victor Wembanyama's face, I want Zach Collins there shoving that dude away.
Yeah.
And he'll do it. Like he'll be happy to do it. Here's the other thing, Zach Collins, like it's never been a question of talent. It's just been a question of can he stay healthy? And if you go back through Zach Collins's last like 25 games of the year last year, really started to actually come through on the talent, right?
Yeah.
His last 20 games, he averaged 16 and a half points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 49, 39, 80 from the field as a center.
Yeah. Yeah. His three ball started to fall, which, I mean, that's the thing. That's the differentiator for him is if he can make threes. Yeah. I think if you feel good about his medicals, then you can give him a decent extension. That's
the guy I want. I kind of think like extending Zach Collins for 2 or 3 years makes a lot of sense for San Antonio. Kelly Olynyk and Talen Horton-Tucker in Utah. I mean, again, like, sure, if you want to extend, I don't know if I'd extend Kelly. I might use him as like a trade asset this year.
Yeah.
Talen is young enough where if you buy Talen as a potential fit next to Keontae George long-term, could make sense to extend him.
Yeah. I like Olynyk for like a contending type team. I think he just plays the right way. I think he could help. And if I'm Utah, you can get something pretty decent for him. So yeah, I agree with that.
I think so too. Potential rookie extensions, question number 7. Jaden McDaniels is the name that I am far and away most interested in.
Yeah.
Because if you look at this player type throughout history, recent history, this is the player type that tends to get underpaid. Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
Frankly, Jaylen Brown, I think, is like a comparable player for Jaden McDaniels.
Sure.
Was better offensively than Jaden was at this point, but Jaden is better defensively than Jaylen has ever been.
Mm-hmm.
OG Anunoby, another guy that like was quite underpaid on that deal. Jaden McDaniels is like an all defense guy in the NBA. I know he hasn't made the team yet, but he is probably the best like under 24 defender in the NBA right now, especially among perimeter defenders, right? You could maybe say Victor Wembanyama, but we don't have like the evidence of that yet in terms of the upside. But Jaden has proven it at this point. Doesn't turn 23 until September. If I'm his representation, I'm holding out for a bag and I'm going to them and saying like, look, I'm not signing a below market deal because we've looked at all of these deals that have come across the ledger that I just pointed out. And they always end up below market for these big wings.
Yeah.
I want 4-110 or something like that. Or I'm going to go to restricted free agency and find a deal.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. I mean, you also look at the trade market too for those kind of guys, and the rumors about what a Mikal Bridges or an OG Anunoby would bring in trade is absurd. I mean, it's in some ways it seems like teams are more desperate to get those kind of players just because they do have good deals and they're younger than Dame or James Harden, who are obviously very talented players, but people want these wings. There are teams that would pay a lot for them. So yeah, I think you could demand near max, rookie extension for him.
I kind of wonder, like, could you demand near the max for 4 years for Jaden?
You could hold out, and a team may pay it in restricted free agency, and you just. Because, I mean, that's what it takes as an RFA for you to actually feel like you have a chance to go somewhere else. It's like, hey, we're going to pay him near max. And then you just force Minnesota to match it. Yeah, I think he's in a good position.
I think he's in a really good position. Like Jaylen Brown on this recent deal, he signed a deal for 21.5% of the max when he signed his contract. 21.5% of the max of what the number is going to be next season. That number is about $30 million a year.
Yeah.
maybe you give like a slight discount because the offense isn't quite as far along. But I think the number is like 4-1-10. And here's the other thing too. Tim Connolly is, in Minnesota now. Tim Connolly took care of his young guys in Denver. I'm assuming this gets done, and I'm assuming the number is going to be bigger than what people think.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be like 4-1-10, 4. If it got to 4-1-20, like that would not blow my mind.
And I don't
he's better than, here's the thing. He's better than Tyler Hero, who just got 4-1-20.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's what Minnesota needs, frankly, as well.
Yeah.
And so they're in a position where they can't really mess around here. It's not like they have another player that can really replace him in their lineup. Like they need a player that will take on the best perimeter talent and allow Anthony Edwards to do his thing. And I think it's a great duo right there, like a perimeter duo of those two. So yeah, I think they got to do it.
Yep. Immanuel Quickley, is there a number that makes sense for you there?
I like him. I would just wait and see if I'm the Knicks. I think the Knicks have been really good and prudent with the moves that they've made. And so I would wait and just keep flexibility, see how he plays. He had a really good start to the year and really flamed out. And so for me, I would just wait.
I think he was really good near the end of the year too. I think he's a starting guard. I think he's really good. I'd go like 4-100 for him. I would.
The way that he played in the regular season, 100%. He is that guy. And how old is he? Quickley's not very old.
No, he's still quite young. He's still 24.
Yeah. And honestly, like those deals are the ones, and it feels still like the sticker shock to some people. It's like, wait, what, you're paying Immanuel Quickley that much? We haven't like readjusted our brains to the amount of money that is actually floating around the NBA. That in 2 years, that will seem like a very reasonable deal for me.
That's right. I do. He's averaged 15, 4, and 3.5 this year. Was like fairly efficient. Was just like slightly above league average in terms of true shooting percentage.
And a good defender.
He is an awesome defender. It's the kind of guy you want, I think, as a role player, especially if you're star hunting, if you're the Knicks, right? It wouldn't surprise me if they don't get an extension done just to look into him as a potential trade asset at the deadline, though.
Yeah.
You might take him into restricted free agency and then pay him in order to maintain your flexibility long term.
Yeah. And even then I wouldn't be afraid of that if I were New York. I think I'd rather have the flexibility right now.
Yeah. The third big name for me is Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell had an awesome year before he got hurt last year. Ultimately, they need to make like a real determination on his knees and figure out like what they're comfortable paying.
Yeah.
I think he is an awesome player. I think he's going to be like a borderline all-star when he's on the court. He's still only 22 years old and just is coming off of like an 18-4-4 year where he's becoming like a mid-range assassin and shoots 39% from three. It really does come down to like how comfortable are you with the knees at the end of the day.
What are your thoughts on his knees?
What are my thoughts? I think I don't have the information. I guess is where I'm at.
Yeah. I would. If I'm the Spurs, I extend him. I just think that he is just like what we talked about with McDaniels at like a higher level offensively. You extend those guys. You got these two-way wings, especially Vassell, who I think has like some potential to be like a real creator.
Yeah.
Like I just extend him if it has to be a max rookie extension, fine. Like I just wouldn't even worry about it. Like he's still so young. That's the kind of guy that you would want with Wembanyama that can kind of play on both ends.
Yeah.
I would just do it, and you just hope that he gets healthy. And also, when you're tanking, sometimes the health of your players, matters a little bit less. And sometimes you do shelve them a little bit longer to make sure they are 100%. And you're not playing guys whenever they're at, 70% or whatever. Like, you're not quite there yet. Like, get yourself right. I think that kind of stuff happens too. So I don't know what to think about the 38 games that he played last year, because we knew all year that they were trying to get Wembanyama. And so, Vassell would have helped them win more games and would have changed their lottery odds in some way or another. And I don't think you want to mess around with that. And so I don't really fear the 38 games that he played. I just wonder what it looks like next year.
Well, and here's the other thing with Vassell, right? Like, their cap sheet is so open, especially after the fact that they did not invest a lot in free agency this year.
Yeah.
Where I think you just kind of pay him and roll at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, you have Trey Jones for $9 million in 2024-25. You have Keldon Johnson at 19. You have Vic at 12. You have Graham at 12. And then you have Sohan at like 5.
Yeah.
Those are the only guys you really like.
You need to get to the floor. Like, you have to get to the floor anyways, so you might as well.
And you still have like max space if you really want to like try and go nuts in free agency moving forward.
Yeah.
I give Vassell what he needs. And I think that number is 25 plus. It could be 30. Like, honestly, I mean, again, like, this is a guy I would take over Tyler Hero.
I wouldn't bat an eye at paying him 30. I wouldn't. Yeah.
I think you kind of have to just pay it and go. The problem for him is that he hasn't shown it now for more than like, he hasn't shown that he's worth that number for more than 38 games. So I wonder if they think that they could get a discount.
Yeah.
It's on it. Whereas Tyler Hero showed it in the playoffs. Jordan Poole showed it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Devin Vassell is better than those guys, but he's shown that he's on their level for 38 games. I wonder if he ends up getting a little bit less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I just think also teams will be, even at like 25, 28 a year, teams will be calling. If the Spurs are like, hey, Vassell's available, I think you've got 12 teams immediately calling, trying to get that kind of guy on their squad.
I think that's right. Okay, last little group of extension eligible players: Onyeka, Okongwu, Josh Green, Pat Williams, Deni Avdija, Xavier Tillman, and our dear sweet boy Aleksej Pokusevski.
Yeah, I would extend Okongwu. Like, I feel great about extending Okongwu. I just like him as a player. I think that he's going to be valuable just because of his feet and just ability to move at the big position. Yep. So I'm a big fan of him. Deni would not. Josh Green, the Mavs are in such a weird spot. I don't know. I don't know what to think about the rest of those guys. I'm probably a no on everybody else.
I think Pat Williams and Green. I think he's the one for me.
Okay, really? I was kind of thinking of Okongwu and Pat Williams. Like, Pat Williams shot the ball well enough to where I'd probably extend him. I think everybody else I'm lukewarm on.
Well, like, so the thing is that these guys that are going to get extensions, you have to get them above the mid-level line, which is like 60 next year or so, like above 60. So you have to go like, are you going to give Josh Green 475 based on what he's shown?
I don't know.
Maybe.
There's been some stretches. I just didn't like the way he played at the end of the season with Kyrie and with Luka. I felt like his role got so diminished with those two that his impact wasn't felt at all.
I think it's a risk to extend Green at that number.
Yeah.
But I also think there's real reward potentially if he continues to shoot 40% from 3 and, continues to be a transition driver, like, who can really fit with Kyrie and non-Luka lineups in that way, and like continues to defend at a really high level. Like, there's a chance he's a $100 million player in terms of value by the end of this season, I think.
Yeah. He got a lot better. It's just such a weird team that I don't know what is up and what is down with the Dallas Mavericks. And I also just his size for position is not great either.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. He's like a 6'5", 3, basically.
Yeah.
With like the ball handling skill that he has. But that's, again, I think for Dallas, that's okay when you're building around Luka. Mm-hmm. He's the one that stands out. Onyeka, like, I don't know if I'd want to go 470 for Onyeka, I guess.
You wouldn't go 470 for Okongwu? Really? Why?
Is it big? Like,
yeah.
like Jakob Poeltl just got 480, and Poeltl is better than Onyeka by like a pretty substantial margin.
I know he is today. I just think Onyeka can, if he can get, I think what he just needs is consistent minutes. Like they just need to find somewhere for Capella to go. I think if he plays consistently, I think he's got a little bit more to his game. I'm just a fan of him. I just like his switchability, and I think that he could be a great player. But I would do that extension, no problem.
I don't mind the take. I might want the flexibility moving forward where like I can just do that next summer, maybe. If he proves that he's better than what I think. Because like there's no way he gets 400, I don't think.
No.
Bigs just don't get paid like that.
Well, and also an argument against me here would be that there are a lot of bigs on the trade market right now that just can't be moved.
Yes.
And teams that just don't want them. And so, but to me, he's just a little bit more flexible than like a Capella or Nurkic or whoever else.
And the reason we're not talking about Tyrese Maxey here is that there's been reporting from Ramona Shelburne that Tyrese Maxey is not going to get an extension this year. And we know that. He's the other name that like we could realistically bring up here. Question number 8. PJ Washington is the last big time remaining restricted free agent that I think is worth like real substantial amounts of money. What happens with PJ Washington?
Oh gosh. I mean, if you're the Hornets, you can't let him go because he's like one of your 3 NBA players. So, I mean,
I think they want to be reasonably good this year too, not like a disaster at least.
Well, good luck with that.
I think it's going to be a little harder than what they think, but like PJ Washington coming off of a year where he averaged 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2.4 assists, about a steal, about a block. Did not shoot super efficiently inside the 3-point arc. Did shoot 35% from 3 on 6 3-point attempts per game. Was basically asked to do a lot and play above the role that is ideal for him. I think is the way to say it.
As is every Hornet last year.
So I don't know what Charlotte's doing here, I guess. If I was them, like I'd be worried that he just takes the qualifying offer. And if he takes the qualifying offer, I lose all like value on him. Because his qualifying offer is like $8.5 million. That's not insubstantial.
Well, and I think that next year's free agency class is not very good. He could go get some money next year. And also like the contract numbers like readjusting, and like he'll go make 20 million a year next year from somebody. He's
as an unrestricted free agent next year. Because if he takes the qualifying offer, he'd be unrestricted next year. That's his leverage. Like people will say, well, nobody has money to pay PJ Washington at this point. His leverage is that he takes the qualifying offer at $8.5 million, which is not a crazy, like, bad amount of money for him to be making. And goes to hit unrestricted free agency next year and makes, potentially 100 in unrestricted free agency, given the fact that he'll be hitting that level as a 25-year-old who probably averages again 16, 5, and 4 or whatever as a big and can shoot threes and can be versatile. So that's real leverage, I think. I think Charlotte just kind of has to pay him. I don't know what Charlotte's doing here with him. I truly don't.
I don't think that there's a number that you can get to with him that's not palatable, honestly. Like I think he's a good player. I think he's somebody that can play with almost any team just because of his ability to shoot and defend, and he's a pretty good passer too. He got better, from year 3 to year 4, got a lot better. And I don't know. I don't get it either. I don't get most things that the Hornets are doing. So this just kind of falls in line with that.
I think they just kind of have to pay him. I do.
And
I think the number is like 20 million a year, or like if you even pay him like 18 a year, like I think that.
Oh, that's more than palatable. Like that's tradable day one.
You pay him and you do that. And I don't know why they wouldn't.
He turns 25 in August. Young player. If you have him locked up through his prime, Like, why wouldn't you want to do that? I just don't understand. What other options does Charlotte have at this point?
Not sure. Not totally
Especially
sure.
if you want to be, like, you started this by saying that they want to be good.
I think they want to be better next year. I do.
Well, PJ Washington is not on your team. You are worse.
I agree. And Kelly Oubre is not on your team next year. And, Gordon Hayward's on an expiring deal. And Mason Plumlee, you don't have him for 56 games. Like, you don't have Jalen McDaniels for 56 games. Hopefully you have Terry Rozier for 75 instead of 63. Obviously you get Miles Bridges back. You get LaMelo back for, hopefully 70 instead of 36.
Yeah.
But I think that
matters most.
The Hornets are not maybe don't quite get how some of their other players departing might hurt their value, as opposed to like getting LaMelo for 70 and getting Miles Bridges for 70 might help their value.
Yeah.
All these guys that you lose potentially could diminish the value of your overall team. And I do want to bring this up too. James Donaldson brings up, I think what happens with the Hornets changes now that they've been sold. New ownership will want to retain assets and not see them walk. I don't know what their ownership's plan is necessarily. I do think the fact that they have new ownership will give us some sort of answer on this a little bit more quickly.
Yeah.
If I was them, maybe, I don't know what PJ wants. Like, maybe he wants to be in Charlotte. Maybe he doesn't. I have no idea.
Yeah. Regardless, I think you can sign the deal and you can always request a trade. Like I said earlier, I think that's just the move. It's just like, get your extension done and then prove your value. And then some team will probably trade for him.
Yep. Okay. The question number 9, let's go with the best free agents available. Kelly Oubre, Christian Wood, Terrence Davis was best unrestricted guys. Like, Terrence Davis is a name.
I would go Terrence Davis over both those other guys. Honestly, I kind of like Terrence Davis.
He at least showed that he could be valuable last, in the playoffs, as like a guy that chased around Stephen Curry and can shoot.
Yeah.
I think Kelly Oubre is probably the most talented guy, but it's not ideal. Genuinely, do you know who I think like the best asset on the on the free agency market is right now, outside of PJ Washington?
I have no idea.
I think it's Dom Barlow, who is on a restricted 2-way tender from San Antonio.
Yeah, he was great in summer league, man. Like, he's legitimately looked really good.
If I was another team, I would be offering him like $5 million a year and making San Antonio match. I think San Antonio would just match, but I would make them do it. Yeah. I think he's worth that amount of money. And if you're him, like, you take that as opposed to being on a minimum next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right. Right.
Do like a 3-15 and make San Antonio match.
Yeah. I also still kind of like Hamidou Diallo. I think he can do some stuff.
Good, certainly a great athlete, interesting defender. Like, you make case for that. I think that there's real.
He needs to be in the right spot, but I would sign him over Christian Wood or.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, what is Kelly Oubre really doing for you?
The funny thing is, the Kelly Oubre averaged 20 points a game last year. I think Kelly is probably the best free agent available.
He's the most talented free agent, for sure.
It's just like, what does he actually do in terms of wins and losses? I don't know if
that's the question. I think that's why he and Christian Wood are still sitting out there.
It's probably true. It's definitely true, actually. Yeah. But there are not a ton of great free agents available remaining at this point.
Yeah. And if you're Kelly Oubre, I mean, you are taking that 20 points per game and showing it to everybody, and everybody's just looking at it like, cool, man. Did it in Charlotte. Great job.
Final question here. And it's about Andrew Schlecht's Oklahoma City Thunder. It is honestly the question I'm most intrigued by, just straight up, in the NBA right now. What in the world does Oklahoma City do with all of the players currently on their roster? They downgraded this a little bit yesterday or 2 days ago by removing Rudy Gay's deal from not from their books. They still have to pay Rudy, but Rudy is going to be released.
Yeah. Yeah, they released him so they could sign Jack White.
This team has 20, I believe, real like NBA contracts.
Yeah.
Right now. They also have Keontae Johnson on a two-way, two ways available. They lose Jared Butler because Jared Butler signs a two-way in Washington with Will Dawkins, former assistant GM. Or no, he was GM of the was he GM or assistant GM?
No, he's assistant.
Oklahoma City. Yeah. He was the assistant GM. Yeah. The Thunder basically still have to cut 5 guys or trade 5 guys for picks. And here's the real issue. All of these guys are good. Or all of them are like interesting in some way. Like, I don't know if Ty Ty Washington is good yet.
Yeah.
But Ty Ty is interesting on some level.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they have interesting guys. I think the main question for me with OKC is like, how much does Presti value having like these bigger expiring deals like Victor Oladipo's? Yeah. Because like an expiring $9 million deal, like could be valuable to somebody, you know, toward the trade deadline. And so I wonder about that because they could just, he's one that makes sense to cut just because you do have talent, you know, there that you could still mine a little bit. Also, the Thunder are going to have legitimately several, I mean, they're going to have a good like 9 to 10 man rotation of like good NBA players and not necessarily developmental projects.
And still won't be playing all of the guys who deserve real playing time, even with a 9 to 10 man rotation.
Totally. And this is why the Thunder are going to do the thing where they play 12 guys a night and they shuffle in and out guys from the rotation. You're going to have your base of like 7 guys that will play every game, but then, you know, 8, 9, 10 is going to change, I think, week to week for OKC again, just so they can make sure they have the right guys. Like Ousmane Dieng deserves to play a lot of minutes. And when you start talking about this team, he's not necessarily even one of like the best 10 guys that you mentioned.
Well, it's funny. So like run through this roster, right? Shea is safe. Lou Dort is safe. Chet is safe. Mitsic, like they just signed him. They're not cutting him.
Yeah.
Josh Giddey is safe. Kendrick is safe.
Jalen Williams, both Jalen Williams. We're at 8.
Yeah. Jalen Williams is safe. Jalen Williams, Santa Clara is safe. Kasem Wallace is safe. That's 9.
That's 9.
I don't see a world where they release Ousmane Dieng or anything. That's
no. Yeah, there's
like
no way.
Zero chance.
Yeah.
I want to save Jalen. You know what? Other Jalen Williams, I think, is safe. So like that's probably 11.
He had 10, 8, and 8 in a play-in game. You know, like I think he's safe. I would say he's safe.
So that leaves you with.
I mean, Isaiah Joe is probably safe.
Oh, Isaiah Joe's definitely safe too.
That's 10.
There's no way they cut Isaiah Joe.
Yeah.
That leaves you with Davis Bertans and Victor Oladipo. I'm assuming they keep one of those deals.
I think it's Bertans. I think Bertans
current guess. Yeah, I agree. I think Bertans gives you a little bit more flexibility, basically. Yeah. So that gets 1. That gets you down to 19.
Yeah.
Our dear sweet boy Poku.
Yeah.
Trey Mann, Usman Garuba, Ty Ty Washington, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Aaron Wiggins, Jack White.
Yeah.
I think get rid of like a lot of those guys.
I think you can bump Aaron Wiggins to close to the top of that list of guys that'll probably stay.
I think so too. Aaron Wiggins is pretty good.
Yeah, he can play. I don't know how good Aaron Wiggins is, but he can play. And so I think I'd bump him to the top of that list.
Definitely a rotation player.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. I think he can play for a lot of different teams just because he can shoot it a little bit. He defends. Great character guy as well.
I think if I was an opposing team, I'd be calling about Jeremiah Robinson Earl.
Yeah. That's somebody that I think can probably be had. And if you give a decent second for him, I think that you could have him. And I think he's also, he's just in a spot where everybody else has gotten better and he's kind of struggled with injuries and he didn't really get all that much better at the beginning of last year. But I do think he can help. Like if I'm a young team, if I'm Charlotte, for crying out loud, I call I'd offer a second rounder for JRE just because I think he can help you culturally. I think he can play a little bit of defense. He's also the biggest problem with him is he's just kind of caught in between positions a little bit.
Yes. He's like an undersized center, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If I was another team, I'd be calling about Trey Mann.
Yeah. Trey is an interesting one just because his elite skill is being able to create space off the dribble. He's probably like one of the top 5 best players at creating space off the dribble. Problem is he just didn't make enough threes last year. And he also his build is pretty slight and he's never going to be like a plus defender. But there is potential for him to be a 6-man type of guy that comes off the bench and can just go on a heater. He scored in his rookie season. He scored 20 points in a quarter twice. So he can fill it up. It's just, I just don't know that he's going to have the room to do that on this Thunder team. And I think
he was awesome at Summer League. I thought he's truly awesome on offense.
He's very good at Summer League. Yes. But when you start breaking down the guard rotation for the Thunder, it's tough when it's Shea and Giddey and J-Dub and Micic and Casenwall. Like we're at 5, and I've even said Dort. There's 6.
Yeah.
And a lot of the saving grace for Trey Mann for the Thunder may be that almost all the guys that I just listed can all play up a little bit.
Well, and Aaron Wiggins can play the 2 as well. Which is
Wiggins could also be considered a guard. Yes. So it's going to be tough for Trey and Isaiah Joe. There's another one. There's 7. There's just too many guys. And Isaiah spot in the rotation last year, anyways.
And Isaiah Joe is good. Like Isaiah Joe is actually really good.
Yeah.
So I think that you need.
He can.
And he's on one of the best deals in the NBA right now.
Yes.
You just can't do it. Someone brought up Trey Mann to the Bucks. That's a brilliant idea.
That'd be great.
I think that's really interesting. The problem is I don't think Trey Mann gets you a first, but Trey Mann probably gets you a couple seconds, right?
Maybe. I think Trey needs a lower pressure environment.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Trey
not wrong.
I think Trey needs a place where he can spread his wings a little bit and be able to go out there and similar to what Jordan Poole got with the opportunity in that terrible year for the Warriors, get a chance to just go be reckless and figure out who you are. I think that's what he needs. And I think the Thunder tried to give him a role last year that he just couldn't really thrive in. And so I wonder if he just needs somewhere that he can just kind of spread his wings and just try to figure out who Trey Mann is in the NBA.
If you're the Spurs, this is a guy that's really interesting to me.
Oh, yeah. Spurs is a great spot for him.
So the Spurs have a 2024 first round pick from Charlotte that is lottery protected both of the next 2 seasons. And if not, it then becomes a 2026 second and a 2027 second.
Yeah. So this is a 2020. These are 2 seconds.
Well, it's interesting because to me, that kind of pick has some upside, a little bit of upside, but probably is 2 seconds in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're the Thunder,
so
heartbeat. Yeah.
That's an interesting deal to me that you could make. They probably have other picks as well that I'm sure that you could try and find maybe a better asset value.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Seasons and Sloan in the chat. The Wizards are also an interesting one. Also, you have the Will Dawkins connection as well.
Well, they have 1 million. They also have 1 million guys on their roster. So I don't know if the Wizards make total sense, but Trey's probably more interesting than some of their guys.
I would just say that I think a lot of those guys will be cycled in and out over the next calendar year in Washington.
Yeah. What if you did Trey Mann and a second for that Charlotte pick, basically? But they don't want a 2024 probably. They probably want a future pick. So maybe but the future picks we think will probably be 2026 and 2027 seconds with some upside for 2024, 2025 first rounders where they have 1 million of those. I don't know.
I would probably do something like that.
Yeah. I don't think I think he ends up just getting a couple of seconds if he ends up being the odd man out. And I don't think there's any certainty he ends up being the odd man out.
There's no certainty yet. Because I do think they're going to take all these guys to camp and they're going to let them play.
Think that's mostly right. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they move one of them ahead of time just because they get a good offer or something.
Yeah, if they get a good offer on any of those dudes, I think they'd take it.
Right. Okay. If you had to predict the 5 guys who get cut from the Oklahoma City Thunder right now,
Jack White.
I think he just gets moved to a 2-way, probably, right?
Yeah, because he probably, if you waived him, he'd probably make it through waivers. Then you can sign him to a 2-way. Jack White. Let's see. I'd probably say Oladipo is another one. I think probably both of Ty Washington and Garuba are probably gone.
Okay, 3, 4.
And then I would probably say Jeremiah Robinson Earl.
That's 5. So my prediction is that they keep one of Garuba or JRE.
Yeah. I mean, that's possible.
Because I think they might want just the extra bigger body.
Yeah.
Essentially, because Chet, I'd imagine they don't want Chet to play 80 games this year. Right.
Yeah.
So you probably do want the extra bigger body.
Who would you pick out of those two?
I would rather have Garuba, but I would understand the case for JRE. I think they're pretty close. I'd rather take the flyer on Garuba, though.
Yeah.
My prediction is Jack White to a 2-way, Ty Washington elsewhere, Victor Oladipo elsewhere. That's 3. JRE 4. And then I think they move one of Trey Mann or Poku.
I think that's very possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Poku extension eligible, we mentioned earlier. And the Thunder traditionally just don't let guys get to restricted free agency. They make a decision before then. And so it's definitely a possibility.
I mean, if you're Poku, like, you probably sign if they're willing to give you a 3-year, $21 million deal, like, that's super cheap, you probably do that. But
I think so.
I don't know that they'll do that. Like, I don't know where the Oklahoma City organization is on the Poku Sans that we're all waiting for.
It's been tough. Just, I think his injury luck last year is very ill-timed. And has put him in a weird spot. And then he got hurt again, and he's back working out again now. But it's just been a tough year for Poku. And he got better. It's just he didn't get he's not enough at this point. He still needs to get stronger, and he needs to shoot it better. I think if he can do those things, then he can make it. If he doesn't do those things, if he doesn't do both of those things, I don't think he makes it.
He's still only 21. There's somewhere between a 0 and 100% chance that he's going to be good.
It's true. I like him a lot. I think he's a good player. I think he's a really good person. I think he is working hard. This Thunder team could have 2 or 3 first rounders in next year's draft.
Yes.
And then what do you do?
Which is why you probably can't extend him.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that you don't extend him if you don't think he's tradable after the extension. And I'm just not totally sure that he is after the extension.
The thing I really don't know with Oklahoma City, and maybe this is where we'll finish, and this is where I think that it's the biggest question that I don't know.
Yeah.
On this. I don't know how they feel about Garuba's ball skills. If they feel like Garuba can handle and can dribble and pass a little bit, and I think he has some passing. I don't know if he can handle necessarily. I think it's possible they could keep him over Poku.
Yeah.
But they value that skill so much from a like scheme perspective, having
Yeah.
somebody that can dribble and pass and shoot from the center position,
Mm-hmm.
which is why they love Poku, you know,
Yeah.
and hopefully still love him.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's what they have to figure out on Garuba.
Yeah. Which is why, again, I think they'll take most of these guys to camp and they'll try to sort it out there.
And on top of it, I think the Garuba Jalen Williams player type fits better with Chet than the Poku player type does.
Yeah. And they are also in search of physicality as well, which Garuba fits better as well.
Yeah.
Like that's where they're headed.
I have a sneaking suspicion they keep him. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have a weird sneaking suspicion that they keep him.
I think he's an interesting fit, especially if he can pass. Then yeah. Because I think the Thunder have been really good at putting guys in position to just kind of unlock the best parts of their game. And that's where like Isaiah Joe became a player last year because the Thunder just know how to unlock these guys. And so if they can do something like that with Garuba, Ty, I just don't think there's enough room. I mean, we talked about Trey Mann. That's a guy that they selected in the first round, and we're not even sure that even after having a stellar summer league that he can do it. And so that's why I just doubt that Ty can make it.
There. He'll make it somewhere, I think. I'm still a believer in Ty.
In Oklahoma City. Yeah, to be clear.
It's just, I think it's going to be hard for him with Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, we've gone through the 10 biggest questions of the offseason.
Yes.
Tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on in your life.
Go listen to Down to Dunk. It's my Thunder podcast. You can also go listen to the Athletic NBA show. We have a series called A King's Reign that's going on right now. It's a really cool profile on LeBron James. It runs over the course of 2 weeks. I think it's 12 shows. It's very good. There's like an interview with Coach K. There's an interview with Eric Spoelstra. Just some really, really good stuff from our guy Mike Smeltz, and tons of people contributed to it. But it's a great one. So go do that. Those are the two things.
The Athletic NBA show is Andrew's baby outside of Down to Dunk.
That's right.
Andrew is the best. Please go listen to that. Please go listen to Down to Dunk if you want to hear us get nerdy about the Oklahoma City Thunder, especially Andrew. I mean, my God, I come on occasionally and just spout nonsense about the Thunder, but Andrew is deep in the weeds with the Thunder, as you will find. I think that's all I've got. I'll be back later this week. We're going to do something on other stuff. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Almost August.
It's almost August, but we're going to have another episode this week now that I'm healthy again, for sure. Whether or not we do two, we'll see. It's the off season. We need to get serious about where we're at right now. But that's all I've got for you. Until next time, we will talk soon.